Welcome to Taking It to the Streets. I'm your host, Andy Goldman from sunny St. Pete, Florida. This is the show where we take it to the streets, knowing if we don't, the streets will take it to us. Welcome to Taking It to the Streets. It's Andy Goldman, and we are the program that is brought to you in part by Wrightwood Medical Incorporated, the leader in used, refurbished medical equipment. Wrightwood can be reached at www.wrightwood, or WRIGHTWOOD medical.com, or directly 773-848-7100. Again, 773-848-7100. Okay, gentlemen, you see on my left, we've seen him before. The first time we saw Chris, it was to talk about his book. I want to give a brief synopsis before we talk sports. If you want to hear the podcast about That Deserves a While, I implore you to do it. It was awesome. We got very much in detail with it. But basically, Chris wrote a book and shared his life with the sports fans out there. If you're watching my stuff, then you're the type of person that loves that kind of thing. It makes you think about your own life. It makes you think about your highs and lows. He was generous in talking about his son's loss, sharing the loss with, of all people, Rick Hendrick from NASCAR, because I always wondered why, I'm not a NASCAR guy. And I would, sometimes in the summer months turn on, there's Chris Myers calling on NASCAR. I always wondered what the connection was, because I always see Chris as an ESPN, a football, probably like a lot of people, and he's a deep NASCAR person. There's reasons why that go deeper than just what goes around the track. There's frivolity in it. There's levity. It talks about his early days, calling in under a fake name to Miami sports talk show. And, it's just a great book. And I wanted to have him on to talk about it. That's not what this is going to be about. So Chris, with that backstory, it's great to see you, and welcome back to the streets.
Yeah, no, it's always nice to talk. Yeah, we text about other fun things going on, and thanks for mentioning the book. And as you said, I wanted it to be a real story, and that's what it is. But it's got a lot of sports in it, but it's a lot about life, and we continue on. That's all we can do, and enjoy the things we have time to enjoy.
Good. And you've lived an incredible life. There's no question about it. Don't have much time with Chris today. I want to keep. This will be a little bit of a rapid fire, because Chris is a man on the move. This is the middle of football season. Thank you so much, Chris, for making just some time to come up to talk to us. These are just random thoughts that I thought about that I wanted to ask you about. We'll start with baseball. I'm not a big baseball guy. When do we get to the point where AI completely overtakes umpiring? Is my first question. Why are we not there as of this second? Why is the quote human error, which is an old guy term to basically say that, humans are part of the game and the game is of humans, when we live in a digital era? So that is a contradiction. That's my first point. My second point, Game 6. I know we can go through a lot of this. Should that have been a ground rule double? I don't blame the center fielder for selling it, waving his hands in the air. But here's my thing, Chris. The ground rule double thing is a guy that grew up on the north side of Chicago, was created to alleviate the monstrosity that is the friendly confines of Wrigley Field. You're not going to have tens of millions of dollars of athletes fishing out a ball from right center at Wrigley Field that they can't find because it's lost. Now, my point is, he could have played that ball. And he put his hands up quickly, save me, Mr. Umpire, save me, and the ump saved him. Your point about the AI and your that call.
Yeah, I just saw the call, and it's been a few I watched it and thought about it, and he sold it. I thought, it stopped. It wasn't like stuck in the ivy or stuck in a crevice or a pipe where he couldn't get to the ball, as if it would have rolled. Even, let's say, it lands fair and rolls up against the wall that's foul, and it's in there. I mean, he could get it, and so I think that deserved a little more. I mean, of course, they discussed, they looked, but yes, ground rule double probably would have been the more natural, regular call. So that having been said, I am a big baseball guy and grew up on it. And the AI questions are good one. AI, first of all, in a bigger picture to me, it's still artificial intelligence. I have found, in terms of, I like to check it on things, and while it's very useful, it has helped beyond belief in ways that I can even comprehend with medicine, et cetera. it still has some imperfections, as do we as humans, because a lot of what goes into that is what we put in. And so with baseball, I think you have to take, just like with instant replay in football or in other sports or video assist, you have to take certain steps. And I think they tried the robo umps in the minor leagues, and that's the next step in this, because there have been too many missed. There's a lot of good calls. I mean, they do a great job for being human beings on the job for what they see. But now with technology and the things that we can see in the angles, and thankfully for all of those cameras, we can see things that maybe they missed in the moment, and so now they can correct it. I mean, there's challenges, there's restrictions to all of that. But balls and strikes, you get the size of a certain the pitcher's mound. There's a lot to it that you can't miss those. It could change a series and at bat dramatically, and that has to be perfected. And I think with chips in a ball and things like that, that you can do that. And so I don't think that's too far down the road from going where you're saying it's going. But I do think you have to make certain kind of progressive steps, and always kind of have some kind of human influence, human being or at least overseeing, to say, okay, that angle looks this way, but we also have this angle. And then ultimately you have to make a decision, whether that's in baseball with umpiring, or what's going on in the NFL, and in football, it's tennis with the Hawkeye camera, etc., NBA hockey. We're all using the technology, because if we could all see it, certainly the people making the call need the help in making that call.
They're stopping the game in the NFL at an alarming rate to look at calls. Now, the people upstairs, like yourself, for whatever reason, are reticent to say that they're stopping the game because of the gambling being bigger than it's ever been, and in bed legally with the NFL. I don't know why people are reticent and why it still feels weird to say that, but you do not stop a game 6, 7 times for respotting for the greater good of the game. You're doing that for the gambling element. Let's just get that elephant, at least in my opinion. I don't know where you fall on that. Why is there this weirdness to say that they don't want to see DraftKings and FanDuel have to pay out millions of dollars on the wrong side? So they couch it that, oh, this is for the greater good. This is for the integrity of the game. This is not, and not everything's Tim Donaghy.
Yeah. Well, I also think with the NFL, and gambling's a separate issue, which we could talk about, especially with the recent news of the Cleveland Guardians pitchers. Obviously, the memo that the NFL sent out after the NBA and that investigation. I mean, gambling's been going on for years. It's just to what degree were the games actually influenced and/or players. But that's one thing. I think the spotting part, and look, the video assist is helping. And I got to give them credit. They're moving it along rather rapidly, the officials. But just tell everybody, if you're the NFL, hey, we're watching everything with cameras, and when our guys on the field miss something, we're going to get right to them, so that we don't have to go through a whole process of, hold on a second. The example of that primetime game with the Lions and the Chiefs, they ended up getting the right call, but the crew on the field didn't call it. They had help from somewhere else. You got to just tell people that we're trying to, it's a fail-safe system. As far as spotting the ball, my simple solution is you have yard marks, right? And this is the official. You either at 1 yard or you're at the next yard. If you get halfway or a little more than halfway, you're getting the next yard. And that way we're always seeing exactly where the ball is spotted, until obviously you get to the end zone, because when you get to the end zone, anything that the minute the ball crosses that goal line, it's a touchdown. So that would be clear for everybody, and you wouldn't have to worry about, did he mark it an inch back or did he mark it? Because realistically, it's like the tush push. If you can't officiate something, then you shouldn't really have it, then adjust accordingly, so you can officiate and we can all see it. So that's kind of my broad view of that, but it's a very important discussion, and one that I think we're going to have to continue to have. But the NFL is better than ever, and they're doing the right kinds of things in taking the steps that we kind of talked about. The gambling issue, and look, gambling is, whether you like it or not, or you think it's, we're not supposed to say certain things in a game about it, but it's real, it's out there, and that's okay. But when the gambling crosses over with people in your league, or your players, or your coaches, or your influence, that it's just going to have to be regulated. It's going to have to be controlled to a much greater degree than it is being controlled, or at least handled, for those that are involved in the actual in the actual event or the outcome of the event.
So, Chris, help me out in understanding this. This would be the people that are your bosses, your executives, people like this. It's Cleveland versus Jacksonville. Jacksonville's up by 10. Cleveland has the ball on the 10-yard line with 30 seconds to go. The ratings for that game are, at that point of the game, are bigger than the Academy Awards. Why do we have to act weird about the gambling element?
I don't know. I think a lot of people watch. Well, maybe one reason. I'm just speculating that, and I know that it's the NFL that doesn't want it all to be caught up in numbers. There are still fans of both teams. I think they don't want the integrity of the sport, which I understand being toyed with or thrown around. Not that that would be if you just say. I mean, you could reference, hey, they're an underdog, and Al Michaels does a
Yes, he does. He does exactly.
yeah. But he's weaving it in. You notice he can't come right out. You could say underdog, or boy, they were heavy favorites, but did they cover? Boy, the over/under was, and this field goal is going to make all the difference for the people for the gamblers or the bettors. But you know what? It goes beyond that. It's the prop bets. It's
fantasy.
It's the personal. It's fantasy league numbers, and that's important to people. But I guess maybe not to clutter the game is to let people just decipher or determine that on their own when they're watching. Okay, I need this for my over/under, or I need this for my league to get these points from this particular player or for this team defense or whatever it is. You can do that. That's while you're watching at home or in the stands or in the bar or wherever you're watching from. But our job, at least I view it, as the game is the thing. You're calling the game. You're analyst. You're trying to help people get to know the players, understand the situation as best we can. We have a rules analyst. If we all see it, we got to call it that way. You hate to criticize the officials or the league, but if they miss a call, they often will admit it a week later in the mail or on a call to that particular team. So we're not there to bash people. We're there to kind of enhance and enjoy the game, whatever gambling angle there is there or fan angle. That's up to the individual.
There's two different schools right now. We're halfway through the NFL season. I'd love to know which side of the fence you're on. A lot of people think there's a lot of bad teams currently in the NFL, and the other side of the fence is that there's a lot of parity. There's really not a great team. So I'll go first. I think there's a lot of parity. I don't think that New Orleans is a bad team. I don't think the Jets are a bad team in this current crop of the NFL. I'm not talking about against the 85 Bears or the 72 Dolphins. I'm using the 2025 football season as my composite. Are those teams to be taken lightly if they play Kansas City? Are those teams to be taken lightly if they play Buffalo, there's just too many sample size. I mean, what happened in Miami this weekend? Folks, get over it. Miami dominated them. And if you saw the first one, which was a Thursday night game at Buffalo, you'll realize that game that it wasn't a fluke, them blowing them out. They had them on the ropes at Buffalo, and that was on the front end, I believe, folks, of a mini bye that Buffalo had. So Buffalo had every reason to blow Miami out of the. And so my point is, if there's not a big spread between Buffalo and Miami, I'll just use those two as my sample. I think there's a lot of parity. You're never going to sell the Bears are good. You're not going to sell me the Bears out there winning in the 59th minute against the Giants and against Cincinnati are a good team. That's crazy. They're 6-3.
Yeah. But this is what's great about the NFL is that I like you say, Perry, and they've done a great job of between the draft and the economics of it, of creating a great balance. They're better than any sport, really. And another reason they're so successful, because even though you may have a down cycle for a year, years, maybe decades for some, there's a chance you're going to spring back up. I mean, look at the Patriots right now. I mean, Brady and Belichick are gone there in the dumpster for a few years, a quarterback. They draft well. They bring in a guy who was a former player in Vrabel. You can turn things around. So that's one part. And to your point, what's great about the NFL is that, I think instead of Perry, it's just level competition. Yeah, there's a big talent gap between some teams maybe, but on a 50-man, or you want to add had the practice squads, whatever the available players you have, you could close that gap with good coaching and certain kind of usage of your alignment and the way you scheme for a while. I mean, over the long haul of the season, injuries, that's where the depth shows. And so, yes, you could have those kinds of upsets, even if that's why, a perfect record seems like, and that's why we hadn't had one since the amazing Miami Dolphins in the 70s. So I like it that yes, there's some teams that you say, boy, they're bad teams because they're not at the top of the division. They don't have a winning record, but they can beat a good team. They can beat the best team on a particular Sunday, Thursday night game, whatever game you're watching, and that's the magic of the league. And I think, to me, what separates, having covered this sport since I was a teenager on a close basis around Don Shula in Miami, believe it or not, doing radio, and then through the years from Belichick to guys like Sean McVay, and watching them grow. But in today's NFL, you get away with the quarterback is really the key, and there just aren't enough great ones. You had that top group, and then developing quarterbacks is another thing coming from college. The way the college game has changed, I think that's affected it a little bit. But I like that there's that gap, that you could have great upsets at any time, and that you could pencil in, hey, the Chiefs and the Eagles should be in the Super Bowl again. But I don't think so. I mean, the way the system is set up, it gives teams a chance each year to cycle through. There's always at least 4 teams that missed the playoffs last year that are going to get in this year and give their fan base hope. I remember talking to a general manager a little bit about this. I won't say his name, but he'll appreciate this. And I said, the way you've run your team with draft picks with that, he said, well, what would you rather have? Would you rather have 10 years of your team being in the playoffs every year with some hope? Or you have 1 year where you get to the Super Bowl and you win it, but you have 9 or 10 losing seasons?
The latter, that. I want the latter.
You want the latter? Okay. And I said, I took I took the other one because I think a lot about being a fan is having hope. But he said, but you don't know, right? He said, oh, no, you don't know beforehand. That's the thing. You're not sure. So, that way of like for 10 years, I have a shot. In your case, what you're taking is that 1 year you have the shot and you win.
More exciting to be an Alabama fan, or more exciting to be a Missouri fan?
So, yeah, Alabama, I think, I think, yeah.
Missouri, you're never that far away. I went to Mizzou.
But you're not going to win it all. But you're not going to get it all. Yeah, that's a fair point. Well, I think that's another great thing about the league. But yes, what we're saying is that's one of the good things, and it seems like it's happening more often now. Cleveland beating the Packers earlier in the year the way they did. Remember how bad the Browns were? Of course, the Packers had some recent trouble with the Eagles, and you saw some teams exposed. But there's only, while we're talking here, only the Tennessee Titans, who had the first pick and drafted Cam Ward, are the only 1-win team. There's a group of 2-win teams, but it just shows you they're capable of beating anybody, and it has happened. We've seen it from every week. There's at least one major upset, and sometimes a whole lot more. And I think that's a good thing. It keeps the really good teams and good coaches on their toes, so that you can't just kind of glide through anything, and you shouldn't have to if you're going to be a really good team or be a champion.
Okay, so I know we got to keep it short. I've got a couple final questions that I want to tell you about a dinner that I was at last night. Those that know me know that, forgive me, Jerry, we name names on this program. My wife and I are dear friends, old, very successful former GM of the Chicago Bears, Jerry Angelo. And
yes,
you remember Jerry? Jerry's the forgotten man in the Bears story. I'm very pro Bears, and I'm very pro Jerry. We always remember the '85 Bears. We never remember the team that Jerry took to the Super Bowl. That was the team where Devin Hester ran the opening kickoff for the touchdown against Indianapolis and Peyton Manning in Miami. They're leading 10-9 at the break, in way over their skis, finally give way. But Jerry Angelo took a Chicago Bears team. He's in the genre with Urlacher, Cutler, Peanut Tillman. That's the Jerry. Those are some very teams.
But that was the Rex Grossman, right? Not to interrupt you, but he was their quarterback, which tells you a lot about what else they needed to do and how.
Him and a guy named Cliff Stein knew how to manage the cap extremely well, to trust Grossman, spend the money on that defense with Urlacher and Peanut Tillman. Great Bears team, very solid. Only one of 2 Bears teams that's gone to the Super Bowl. Here's a couple questions from the old crafty one, Jerry, at dinner last night that he wanted me to toss at you, if you would allow. Okay. We talked about the 85 Bears when the Bears lost the Monday night game at Miami.
Right. Marino beat him, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. Marino, Duper, Clayton, the first touchdowns, a slant to Nat Moore. Okay. I'm of the opinion, and Jerry wanted me to toss this to you, that if they played him again, I think Miami beats them again because it was a horrible matchup for the 85 Bears. Now, the Bears are framed as this immutable force of nature that was an aberration, and I don't think it was. I think it would have played them instead of New England in the Super Bowl. The Bears might be in over their skis. Where do you fall on that?
Yeah, I mean, I have to go back a little to think about it. I mean, that wasn't just a bad night for the Bears defense. I think the full East. Yeah, I think that. Yeah, and I think that kind. Nobody else had that kind of quarterback with that, at least the healthy offense at that time, to be able to attack that kind of a defense. So I don't know. Maybe if they play five, the Bears win one or two of them. But I still think overall, yes, that the Dolphins. But I don't know that the Dolphins had enough. That team had enough defense, and you have to have the complete team. And that was at an era. We still were moving towards more offense, and I'm sure Jerry would admit that where defense could still win games. I mean, Super Bowls for, at least you could be a championship team with just great defense, and then things kind of shifted. It showed you as we pointed out on the offense that got to that Super Bowl, or at least the core. And this game has become more quarterback centric, but yeah, I would agree with that the Dolphins I wouldn't say it was just a bad night for the Bears defense. I will say that defense, 85 Bears defense, was one of the best defenses ever. The no-name defense of the Dolphins, they went undefeated. But there's never any question in my mind that the undefeated Dolphins, you can't say anybody was a better team for a season because they were perfect in any era, and that's something that holds up.
You like that 85 Bears D more or that 2000 Ravens D when you think back on it?
No, I like the 85 Bears D more. Yep, I do. And again, the things shifted a little bit in the kind of play. And that Ravens defense is a great point because they won also with limited offense and quarterback play as well. But I take the 85 Bears. Maybe that's just because I'm a little more old school on that count, but just having those players that stands out to me as the greatest defense that I ever saw. And I go back a little bit. I mean, I interviewed guys like Deacon Jones and Richard Dent and through the years, I mean, there's different layers of defenses like the Fearsome Foursome and the Purple People Eaters, but and even the 85 Bears, you could pick on that secondary a little bit, which goes back to your Dolphin point. But if you had time, Buddy Ryan's outstanding work with them. So it's Steel Curtain. If you go back historically, that I would put right up there, probably more than the Ravens as well. I'd put them up with the 85 Bears.
Let me toss one more that came off last night that he wanted me to throw at you, which is, who do you think is the better Hall of Famer? Same era, same time, Dan Hampton or Charles Haley?
Well, I would say Dan Hampton. Just because
Harry said Haley.
Yeah, did he really? Okay, Dan Hampton dominated. Haley could change a defense, and he moved around a lot, so he fit. He was a little more versatile, I would say. But in terms of, and yeah, maybe you're talking over the whole career, but Hampton to me was almost unstoppable. And again, he had great players around him as well. But that's cool that he said that he gave credit to Charles Haley, who was kind of a maniac from what I remember hearing from players around him. But a good for the team maniac in terms of how he acted.
Of course. All right, Chris. Before we let you go, a little bit on the. I've got to ask you this. What was there any hint per the Mark Sanchez story that this could humanly? I mean, you work for Fox. I have to ask. I mean, it did.
Yeah, no, I know you're doing your job. I really can't. I can't comment. I've worked with him, and it's a case closed now because from at least our standpoint of a broadcaster and working with him, so until the court and that trial is settled, we really can't. And not that I would add any more insight. I can only talk about the kind of guy he is, and I'll save that for when things are settled, because he, that's how I know him from not always playing days, but having worked with him in certain parts of the season throughout the year.
Understood. Chris, thank you so much for coming on, chatting with us.
Yeah, tell Jerry, great. I love what we should get. I'd love to come out with him sometime, and you and I just throw. I love those those Hall of Fame comparisons about players from different eras, at least that I was able to watch and talk to guys about. I think that'd be a lot of fun. Who gets in and comparing numbers with actual, the eye test of players, which is something that I think gets lost a little bit in today's game. But yeah, that'd be fun.
He was huge. Just one more little crumb. Another one that he did. He was gushing about how great Steve McNair was. I don't know where you fell on that.
Yes, yes, yeah, oh yeah, no, yeah, outstanding, right, it changed, yes, and another a player who, before the running quarterbacks to the degree that we have now, was a very tough and could throw the ball very well. Yeah, tragic ending to that, but yes, I got to watch him play quite a bit, and I wouldn't argue with that. There's some guys underrated whose careers have gone short. And then there's guys who, made the most of the time they had that ended up being in the Hall of Fame, the Terrell Davises, the Gale Sayers, if you go back historically. So
Definitely.
great discussion. Well, thanks for the time, as always.
Chris, thank you. Folks, please stay tuned for Mike and I. We'll be back with our picks. And of course, we thank Chris Myers. Thanks, Chris.
This episode of Taking It to the Streets is brought to you by Wrightwood Medical, the leader in used and refurbished medical equipment. Wrightwood specializes in ultrasound equipment, but can also be your vendor of choice when sourcing lower-cost alternatives for your operating room suites, scanning the entire medical spectrum. From single physician offices to larger hospitals, Wrightwood is the lower-cost solution for your everyday medical equipment needs, and all of Wrightwood's equipment comes with warranty. You can reach Wrightwood directly at www.wrightwoodmedical.com. That is with a W, WRIGHTWOOD medical, or 773-848-7100. Again, 773-848-7100. If it's used medical equipment, it's Wrightwood Medical.
Okay, thank you, Chris Myers, illuminating as always. Folks, if you want to see the first Chris Myers, just go back into the library. He came on. I didn't want to go and do a revisitation of his book. That deserves a wow, but the book does deserve a wow. It's a great, great book. If you're watching Taken to the Streets, trust me, you will enjoy it. And Chris Myers is a true friend of this show. A little bit of a programming note. Next week, we bring back Junior. Jose Cruz Jr. will come back, one of the great Toronto Blue Jays ever, and just a good guy, another guy who's a fan of Taking It to the Streets. And I will tell you right now, I'm going to bring Mike in to get his 2 cents, because this has been just kind of offline with Junior and I. This umping has got to go. There has to be. I am totally fine, Mike, with them going AI right now. I'm fine with the NFL going AI, but as it relates to Junior, some of these calls, like the ground rule double in the Game 6 of the World Series, where the center fielder is so out of position along with the ump, and he's begging and pleading as he's running to the wall, please, please, the ball is slightly underneath the wall. Give me a ground rule double. And that call, Mike, that changed the World Series. Okay, that really changed the World Series. And one thing I did talk about with Chris Myers prior to this segment, the ground rule double was created at Wrigley Field, which makes sense. You don't want a athlete that makes $20 million a year playing the part of a gardener and looking for a ball through the confines of right center field in Chicago. That makes complete sense. And the ball can disappear. Not a lot, but it can disappear. The one at the World Series didn't disappear. It was playable, at least for my 2 cents. And how long do we have to wait, Mike, for AI to really get into the officiating piece of the NFL and Major League Baseball?
Well, I mean, I'm not sure there's anything you could do on that particular play. I mean, with AI, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but in some ways, that's what makes baseball one of the more interesting sports, in that the dimensions of every stadium are different. And there's some excitement to me, like if you're, if you're left-handed, you're hitting at in Boston, you're hitting to a short porch in right field. So, I mean, I kind of like that aspect of it. It stinks when it affects a major game like that, but it's sort of few and far between. And that particular play didn't bother me as much as, if you look, there is something that I I listened to at this other podcast, and there's a guy, his name I think is Base Winner. He talks about they do like a MLB quarters, and they will actually evaluate the umpires based on how many, whether they have a big box or a small box.
Love it.
Which again, I don't know. I mean, I don't like baseball enough to care. I mean, I'm a football guy.
No, so am I. No,
I don't. Yeah. But my point is, some of that is kind of makes the game more interesting when you've got a guy that's squeezing pitchers, and then you've got a guy that's more liberal. So to me, baseball is the one sport that probably will be the last to do it, even though it's probably the easiest to do. I mean, tennis did it and basically got the umpires might as well be a glorified, spectator. He's got the best seats in the house. I mean, but they don't really call much anymore, and you can still challenge. But that's tennis. With baseball, if you're gonna do it, and I know they have tried it in the minor leagues with some success, but I don't know. I personally kind of like the purity of, hey, look, I've got an umpire that's going to call the game a little differently, and especially when you think of the history of baseball, changing it from one, being automatically everybody has perfect strike zones would impact the records, and I don't know.
I'll tell you one thing, Mike. I have a feeling you'll remember this. When you think about what the worst call in baseball history is, it's really would be impossible for most people because there's been so many bad calls and so many bad moments. Depends what fan base you're from, blah, blah, blah. But I'm going to throw out my vote. My vote was, so forgive me, folks, I'm not a baseball guy, but this is tattooed on my brain. I think the pitcher's name was Galarraga. I think he was pitching for Detroit. He had a perfect game going. This is my vote for the worst call in the history of the game. And Mike Smotic said that there was the 27th out that came up, ground ball, I think, to the pitcher, to Galarraga, who walked it underhanded to the first baseman. They called him safe, and he was out. Not even close. There was no review. There was no anything. That, folks, no, again, you can't blame it. There's no review. But I don't know if you remember that, Mike. That truly gets my worst call ever would be Galarraga. And I got to get Galarraga on the podcast because it's I don't know how much counseling he's had to go through to get through that horrific.
Yeah,
it's scary.
I remember the play, and and I think MLB came out afterwards and said, well, it is, but you especially when you're dealing with the perfect game, the last thing in any sport, the last thing anybody wants to see is the referees taking an active part in any game.
Right.
And so that's where I have a bigger issues with refereeing, especially in the NFL. The refs I've seen more calls now where they're throwing flags and then picking them up, and it's
and runner up. I went to Mizzou for college. A runner up, which I was just inundated with for 4 years at Missouri. Yeah, 4 years is
Colorado game, right?
They call it the call, which was the '84 World Series, the I-70 series between St. Louis and Kansas City, where a huge pivotal play occurred, where they called the Kansas City player safe when he was out by a mile, and Kansas City goes on and wins the World Series. So again, I give you a couple of different. I digress. We'll talk about it with Jose Cruz Jr. next week before Mike here on Take It to the Streets. But we're going to pivot to.
Oh yeah, can you when you talk to him next week, can you see if he can tell me what the first pitch of the game's going to be, so I can put lots of money up on it? But since we saw that since we saw that basketball had their scandal, baseball has followed suit very shortly, and so I'm excited for football and football and hockey to be the next to show up.
Of course. Okay, folks. So I'll give you, Mike, a quick what I saw last week. I tried. You've known me now, Mike, for years and done this with me, and I am not one. At least I don't see myself to ride the coach and the coach and the coach. I'm actually one that's pro the coach. Don't like firing coach midseason. I watched the Monday Nighter last night, and I don't think Philadelphia goes anywhere with the Sirianni as the head coach. I couldn't believe the game he called. I couldn't believe the amount of opportunities they were given to Green Bay. I don't know what was scarier, the amount of him, the game that Sirianni called to the end, going for it on fourth down, stopping the clock. This team has 2 timeouts left, everything. All they need is 3 points to go to overtime, or that Green Bay couldn't cash in for whatever reason because Green Bay doesn't have any receiving. And when you're drafting Matthew Golden with your first round pick, you're desperate as could be. Really, they miss Devontae Adams. They really do. It goes back to Devontae Adams. They haven't had a real receiver there since. So I just couldn't believe, though, the game Sirianni called. I thought it was unbelievable to the bad. That sticks out of what I saw this week.
Yeah,
Something that I alluded to with Chris, are we seeing a lot of parity, or are there a lot of bad teams in the NFL? I think it's the former, not the latter. I think when you see what Buffalo did against Miami, the square guy, again, doesn't understand that wasn't an aberration. Go back to the first time those two teams played. Miami was all over them, gum on the shoe, had everything go wrong in the final 5 minutes, including roughing the punter. Front end of a mini bye for Buffalo. So it leads me to believe that there's a lot of parity, not a lot of bad teams. So there's a couple different things there to unpack, Mike, but what did you see this week, and thoughts on Sirianni and the game he called yesterday?
Yeah, I thought it was one of the worst coach games by both teams. I mean, there was a 4th and 6 or 4th and 8 that Green Bay went for it.
Right.
They were in field goal range. I mean, I know they don't have Adams, but losing Kraft has been a huge.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't realize how much of their offense went through him, and they actually drafted that guy Musgrave, who's the other tight end, ahead of Kraft, and he is not he's not a replacement at all for him. And something is off in Green Bay, and I can't figure out what it is. And I don't know if LaFleur's message is going stale, if Jordan Love isn't quite as, ready to make the leap as we had hoped he was. But I just, that Sirianni has surrounded himself with great coaches. But when he doesn't have a good coach, he exposes himself as the clown that he actually is. He's a great guy to be your head coach when they are winning, and he's kicking people's butt and he's talking trash. But he does not hold a locker room well together that is wilting. And if you recall 2 years ago, before they played in the Super Bowl last year, but they replaced their offensive coordinator that year because the team was completely in turmoil. The Bucs kicked their ass in a game where they were, the Eagles had rushed out to like a 12-game lead, and then they just I was going to use an inappropriate term, but they started to do poorly the rest of the year. Yeah. And, I feel like this season is closer to that season than the Super Bowl season. I don't feel like the offensive coordinator is getting it going. Jalen Hurts seems like he's just trying not to make mistakes. And, is A.J. Brown, is he getting paid for these games that he runs routes, or just because he doesn't do anything? He doesn't impact the game at all. Goddard and Smith, if I am surprised just based on the body language and all the problems that he's kind of created, pouting why he's still on the team. I know they need him, but they don't seem to use him, and they're not. He's the kind of guy you got to get involved early and often, and they did a terrible job last night. That last play they threw, it didn't even look. He stuck his hand up, and looked like he was jogging. But it's also because he hadn't gotten the ball all game, and receivers are divas, but you got to keep them happy. Especially when they're as talented as A.J. Brown is. And I was really surprised they didn't try to move him, but there may not be a huge market for him because he's a 30-year-old receiver, or almost 30, and he's a pain in the ass. Nobody wants a pain in the ass in their locker room. So yeah, I'm
conflicted. I'm conflicted on a couple different assistants in the NFL. When can we officially declare that Chip Kelly is a bum? That's my first question. So when can we call Chip Kelly a bum? And my second question is, when can we stop kind of acting like Vic Fangio's Buddy Ryan. Okay. So I find that Vic Fangio had his moment in the sun, and it was a big one, which was the last Super Bowl. And he should have gotten the game ball. His scheme was terrific, and they win the game because of it. Period. End of story. The way they frustrated Mahomes was absolutely unbelievable, and it was all Vic. Overall, I mean, I'm pretty fluent in the Vic story. Vic was the defensive coordinator for the Bears. Vic was out all over his skis as a head coach, Denver, Miami, I believe. This defense, they had a great night last night, not taking it, but if you really watched them all season, Mike, fair to Midland.
I disagree on Fangio. I probably agree with you on Kelly. Fangio, I mean, they scored 7 points and we're not moving the ball, and adding Phillips has added a dimension. I mean, they're going to be a team that needs to win running the ball and playing defense. And Fangio's one of the reasons they took Phillips and traded for Phillips was because he played for him in Miami. So he knows the scheme, and it's a complicated scheme. And I still think that if I'm laying blame at anybody in Philadelphia, it's not Vic Fangio. It's more on Sirianni.
No, there's no blame. There's no blame. I just don't see him in the Buddy Ryan. And I'm making a statement. I don't know that people compare him to Buddy Ryan, but you get the point. I just don't have him.
I think he's a difference-making coordinator, but that's not the reason the Eagles, and with Carter, when Carter is playing, and then you add Phillips, and then they're getting back the other guy from Georgia who's why can't I draw? It's numbers. I can't remember his name. He's another edge rusher who ran a 4.3. They're going to be fine on defense. Chip Kelly, his act wore thin in Philadelphia. His act wore thin in San Francisco, where he was, I think, one and done. And he went back with his tail between his legs to college. And his scheme works in college when you have superior talent against inferior talent. I feel like, I mean, I'm not an offensive genius, but I feel like I could do pretty good with Ohio State's offense against, some of the also rans of the Big Ten, which there are plenty of. And so he looks great in that setting. Their offensive line is just garbage. And I am still, I'll go back to this. I cannot believe they spent a pick on a running back. And it is not just, I'm not agreeing with you that all running backs are bad. It's just a running back is not going to fix the problems of the offensive line. And you cannot trot that offensive line out. And Pete Carroll's son is the offensive line coach. So, I'm all for nepotism when it helps me, but
Mike, look at how good this Vidal's playing for the Chargers. Look at how good Rico Dowdle's playing. There is no need to put a nickel into a running back. Get over it. There's no need. And conversely, Atlanta, who's just getting by. And they did put a lot of capital into Bijan. And you can sit there with your fantasy football team and your buddies and be just awestruck at Bijan Robinson, or you can be real and say, you know what? That you're fine with Vidal, and you're fine with Rico Dowdle, and the guy that's Monange, forgive me if I didn't pronounce the name right, for the Bears. I think that is the right pronunciation. And they're doing just fine running to these guys who are less than taxi squad players. It's time to come to the realization that it's all about the line, and come to that real. Don't trust me, then trust Bill Walsh. He's the one who created it. You build your team inside out.
Would you trade? Would any if Atlanta called San Diego and said, "We'll give you Bijan Robinson for Joe Alt"? How quickly would Harbaugh hang up on him? I mean, he wouldn't even take the call. He said, "What are you talking about?"
Right.
So I agree in that regard, but the number of premier offensive linemen is those guys are quarterbacks in this league. I mean,
in this NFL, they sure as heck are.
And they're starting to get paid like him. Like Tristan Wirfs is a difference maker. Penei Sewell's a difference maker. The guy from Trent Williams.
How about Tunsil? Tunsil.
Those guys were difference makers. He's slowed down, but
how about Slater?
later is when
How about Nate Johnson?
there are few and far between that are premier. You know what I'm saying? Like it is such a hard position to get right because there's such a physical advantage by defensive ends. I mean, they're bigger, faster than they've ever been, and there's only so many guys on the planet that are 6'8" and can carry 300 pounds.
I'll tell you, Mike, who's the guy, and I should know his name. It's killing me, for Denver. I watched Denver, and this guy handled.
It's Bowles, or he's from Utah. Bolle.
No, it's the guy that he did a great job on the Raiders.
Do we get money back for that game, since it was the most boring game I think I've had to watch? Between that game, the Sunday night game, and I mean every one of the primetime games were like the worst football.
No, but Mike, remember that this was the guy that was working on Crosby, and he did a great job on Crosby.
Is he the left tackle? Because the left tackle is Bowles.
It's the other side. Big McGlinchey or something.
Well, McGlinchey is from Notre Dame. He's the guy that was with San Francisco.
I think he is, but I think it is. I think that's correct.
Yeah, Bowles is the left tackle, and McGlinchey's the right tackle. But
yeah, it's McGlinchey either he's great or he had a great game. But I did watch him against Crosby, and I was super impressed. All right, moving it on. Mike is an unbelievable 63% ATS since the beginning. 19-11, 2-1 last week. Folks, wherever you're getting your info from, nobody's 63%. Nobody. Period. So Mike's not chest thumping. I'm doing it for him. He's had a sick year. We hope it continues. With that said, Mike, who are you on this week?
It is. I'm going to aggressively say that it's time to fade me. I'm at the all-time high. If I learned anything from you, you should be selling me right now, not buying me. So. Okay. But so in all seriousness, I would tend to agree with you on that. But I just think the square bear wants to ride. He needs to eat.
Yeah.
And if you took out the Panthers games, I might actually have a much better percentage, just giving me 50%. Yeah, give me a random team. I hate the Panthers because they knocked me out of the death pool. And Bryce Young is not a legitimate NFL quarterback. I mean, it is laughable that guy is going to be in the NFL. I don't even think he's a serviceable backup because he's so short. But so I'm sticking with the Square Bear theme, and I have a feeling we're probably going head to head on a couple of these.
Okay.
And I think I'm 4-3.
Yes.
We went 1-1 last week at head to head, and I will say I'm a little pissed off about the Jets getting 2 special teams touchdowns. I understand it's part of the game, but I lost a game where Justin Fields threw for 54 yards. I mean, I don't, I'm crying spilled milk here, and special teams are a part of the play, but 54 yards, I should win that game. There wasn't I didn't throw any passes, and I was only 53 yards behind him. So I am going. I'm going against the Browns this week. I'm taking the Ravens -7.5. I know it's the wrong end. I don't think the Ravens are some great shakes, and this is the time of year I will recommend to everyone that if you're going to be betting, you should be looking at the weather. And I did that beforehand. I always look at the weather to see if there's something coming. There is expected to be about, at least according to the weather map I looked at today, looks like about a 70% chance of rain in Cleveland, which makes me just want to visit Cleveland sooner rather than later. I'd want to get their wallets wet and gross as opposed to just gross. But the Ravens, I think, they know they can't lose right now. They've got to keep pace. Every game matters. I don't think they're playing particularly well on offense, but their defense is actually starting to round form. They put Kyle Hamilton in spots where he is being able to make an impact. The guy he is a literal joker on defense. You can put him anywhere on the field. He can play linebacker, he can blitz, he can play safety. So he's a guy, and I just don't see. I have a feeling that we're going to see Shedeur Sanders this week. I don't know why. It's just you're starting to hear what's the plan in Cleveland? What are we doing? And I want to be first in on betting against Shedeur Sanders. So if he gets in the game, I want to be a part of that. I'm not afraid of Shedeur Sanders. I don't think he's prepared. I don't think he takes the game seriously. I've not paid attention to him. I refused to talk about him one other time you brought him up, but I have a feeling that clamoring in in Cleveland is like, what are we doing with Bill and Gabriel? The coach had to turn over play calling duties to Tommy Reese. And so I think the owner is beginning to meddle. And because he's beginning to meddle, I think we're going to see Shedeur sooner rather than later. And I'm taking sort of the chance that he's going to do it. So I'm taking the Ravens -7.5. Hooks don't scare me when we're dealing with bad teams. Next game I'm taking, I don't like it because I don't like betting on or against them, but I'm taking the Bucks at the Bills. I wish I knew the status of Bucky Irving, because if I knew we had the three-headed monster of Irving, White, and Tucker, I think you could pound the ball. The Bucks have not looked right to me since the Saints game. I think Baker is either injured or everything we saw at the beginning of the year was a little bit of smoke and mirrors, and I tend to think it's a little bit of both. He was a big smoke and mirror. Some of the games they pulled out were absurd, but he did it with healthier receivers. I think the main reason I'm taking the Bucks +5.5 is because the Bills are going to be without Dalton Kincaid, and they do not have receivers that can get open on people. And the Bucks are good at stopping the run, although you wouldn't know it playing against Travion Henderson this week, but he really had two explosive runs that he got outside on. And they've been good at stopping the run all year. And so if you can take Dalvin Cook away and you can keep a spy on Allen, what receiver scares you? Coleman doesn't scare me. Shakir doesn't scare me. Kincaid would scare me against our linebackers, but with him being out of the game, giving me 5.5 points, even in Buffalo, supposed to be rainy in Buffalo, but it's only a 40% chance of rain there. So I wasn't as concerned about the weather, and it's going to be 54. So it's not like super cold weather for the Bucks to have to prepare too much for. The last game, I'm taking the Chiefs. I know I have a feeling you're probably on the Broncos +3.5. The Chiefs, I think I read somewhere that Andy Reid is 22-4 after a bye. This is a must-win game for the Chiefs. The Chiefs are in a dogfight, and the Broncos are 8-1, and a lot of those games, I think 5 of their last 6 games, they've been down in the fourth quarter. The Chiefs will not let up in a game when they know what's going on. So I think that the Broncos defense is one of the more elite units in the game, but with Andy Reid having an additional week to prepare, I like him, and I like betting against Sean Payton any time I can because he's a red ass and I hate him. So I will take the Chiefs -3.5. So I went Ravens -7.5, Bucks +5.5, and Chiefs -3.5.
Okay. There will be no head-ons this week.
Oh,
contrary to your thoughts. There will not be any head-ons. I do not have the other side of any of those games. Again, Mike is leading the head-ons 4-3. I give a small diversion, Mike, that I wanted to talk about. When I think about what the landscape is going to look like in the NFL playoffs, I think we got a look at it. It's tiny sample size, but it's just what I think the NFL playoffs are going to look like. I think it's going to look a lot like Penn State against Indiana. Okay? Where a team that looks lost for dead and listless and has no reason to fight takes the quote number 2 team in the country to the brink. I think we have way too many. I know that's college, but on the same keel, New Orleans, Carolina, both Buffalo, Miami games, I could go on. It's parity. It's not their bad. So my point is, careful dismissing Jacksonville, Houston, Minnesota. Very careful dismissing teams of that ilk that are going to be the bottom of the barrel in the playoffs. That's just my take. I don't think there's a big difference between Minnesota and Philly. Okay. They played each other already, and they called back a Minnesota touchdown at the end, which they looked at for 20 minutes, or Minnesota wins. So we have a growing sample size of the public's always, they're going to die before they don't believe in Kansas City, Buffalo, Philly. We know.
Is there a way I can dismiss the Jaguars just because Trevor Lawrence is their quarterback and I wouldn't trust him in any situation?
What you can dismiss the
college since college? What has that guy done? I mean,
nothing. But they're having a good year, Mike. They're having a good year.
I'll trash Bryce Young, but nobody thinks of Trevor Lawrence as a bad quarterback, and he throws some ridiculous passes. Like, he threw a terrible interception, and you blew a 19-point fourth quarter lead to Davis Mills. So I am officially dismissing Trevor Lawrence. So
I hear you, but Michael, I'm just saying.
I get your point.
Yeah, the 6 through the 8 seeds this year are live. The 6 through the 8 seeds are live, and they're not live for upset reasons. They're live because they're live. That's just my take. They're as good as the 1, 2, 3 seeds.
Well, I think that has a lot to do with maybe the 1, 2, 3 seeds, especially in the AFC, being teams we didn't expect to be there, like Indianapolis, Denver, and New England. New England.
Is there a sharp guy that's not going to be betting against Indianapolis?
Yeah, Daniel Jones is turning back into a pumpkin at some point. We know that.
So here we go. I am 50%. I'm 15-15 for the season. First one I'm taking is Washington plus the 2.5 against Miami. I always have fun trying to, again, bring in the logic, in quotes, of Joe Square. We know Joe Square didn't have Miami plus the 9.5 against Buffalo. Not a chance in hell. If you do any bit of homework. Didn't see a red flag that the house wouldn't go to 10. Sat there at 9.5 all week. I think it ended at 8.5 or 8 at a lot of different places. So now, of course, they'll come back, lay a key number, 12 points they'll give a week later, because there's a 12-point difference in Joe Public's brain between Buffalo and the Commanders. Not me. I don't think there's a 12-point difference between this version of the Buffalo Bills and this version of the Commanders. The Commanders can march out Mariota, Chris Rodriguez, and every other washed-up taxi squad player. This is a pick 'em to me. I'll take the 2.5 all day. So Washington plus 2.5 against Miami. Second one will be, I'm frightened of this one because I normally like these guys in Carolina, but I'm going to go against them with Atlanta minus 3.5 off of the long road trip coming home from Berlin. Not much more than just, a lot of places I did my homework at had this at 4. DraftKings at 3.5. I'll shrug my shoulders. I'll hold my nose. I'll take Atlanta. That's a lukewarm endorsement. It's nothing like how I love Washington. Atlanta minus 3.5. Last one. Similar thoughts.
Andy, real quick, do you want me to weigh in on that so that they will know who the winner's going to be? Because whoever I pick in a Carolina game is going to be wrong.
Okay, so
fade me. No, I'm joking. I'm totally joking. I've gotten every Carolina game.
I know you've been mush. You've been mush when it comes to Carolina.
They don't exist to me. They're not a team that I acknowledge in the NFL.
Yeah.
I've relegated them.
I got you. And the final one, similar thinking, although not as insane as Washington, where we're going to give a 12-point swing from one professional team to another the week before. And, oh, by the way, are we ever going to trust Miami on taking to the streets to win 2 in a row? Ever? The answer is, of course, no. So, again, I reiterate Washington plus 2.5 over Miami. Sorry, that's the first time all season, Mike, that I had to reiterate my pick. And but that's how strong I am on Washington. The last one, almost as strong as Washington. Jacksonville +3 over the Chargers. Love the Chargers flexing their muscles against a really bad Pittsburgh, a terrible defense. Old man River on the defense from everybody's old. Slay, Ramsey. It's just ridiculous how bad that defense is. And folks, remember, if you do your homework, Pittsburgh's defense by the numbers is as bad as Dallas or Cincinnati's. Just for whatever reason, there's the NFL likes to create a narrative, that it's a hard blue-collar town like Chicago that's got these great defenses. Yeah, Pittsburgh's known in the past. They've had great defense. That's not this team. This defense is horrible.
Andy, they're playing the Chargers.
Right. Who did I say?
You were saying Jacksonville. You said
No.
Pittsburgh.
Jacksonville and the Chargers, right?
Yeah, but you were talking about Pittsburgh. You said
Well, no, I'm
Rams.
talking about
Oh,
the Charger-Pittsburgh game that occurred a week.
gotcha. Sorry.
Yeah, that's all I was making the point.
I was checking the weather, and then I realized you took all southern cities. So
Yeah, exactly. So Jacksonville, again, I'm a sucker for a key number.
Oh.
Mike, the key numbers did come into play this week.
They did.
They really did. I know, and I realize that you've proven your point to me that most of the time it really doesn't. But this was not a week, and I did make a point a week ago that I want that 6.5 with Atlanta against Indy. I made a big point about that. It's the same thing with Jacksonville. I want that 3 with the Chargers. I don't see how the Chargers are right to lay 3, a key number on the road. Don't like the 3 time zone over bit. Don't like Jacksonville after that brutal loss that they should not have had. I like getting a team, Mike, when they embarrass themselves. That's what I love about Washington. Washington comes in off of embarrassing themselves not once but twice. I think this is the bottom for Washington. I'm sorry I keep going back to that game, but to me it just jumps. I'm really surprised you didn't have Washington there. Washington's so live to beat that team. It's not funny. Well, you really think Miami can be trusted for 2 wins at home and be a chalk?
Yeah, because I literally think that the Washington defense is one of the worst in the league, and we just haven't realized it. We get the Bengals and the Cowboys, and we talk about how bad those defenses are. Washington's I mean, you saw the game on Sunday. Detroit, it just manhandled them. And I understand Miami's not Detroit, but the one thing that would really scare me about that game is Achane getting matched up against Bobby Wagner. I mean, Bobby Wagner is washed. I mean, he's going to be a Hall of Famer. He's a gold jacket guy, but this isn't the season they're going to show any highlights of when he goes into Canton. So I think that Miami is live, but I don't trust Miami. I don't trust Tua ever. So I stayed away from it. I don't like to be in the business of betting on Marcus Mariota if I can help it. But I see your point. But I just think their defense is really bad.
I'm trading a bottom with them. That's what I am. I'm trading a bottom, and I'm always, when I see that Washington that they won't go to 3, off of really, we know you take advantage of the square money as much as you can, and they've got Miami priced as high as they can humanly handle it. They being the smart people. They won't go to 3 because then they will get absolutely destroyed by real smart money on Washington. They will not go to 3. So that to me screams Washington. Jacksonville is a little bit like you as far as even the house does not trust Trevor Lawrence. They don't trust the defense. They hate how the game ended in Houston. There's a lot of things about that. They trust Washington in this spot. I'm just telling you how Vegas would think.
No, I see that. I just you know deep in your heart that having money on Trevor Lawrence and Marcus Mariota is something you're holding your nose while you do it. But you got to do it. You believe in your model. I worry about those two defenses, and I'm just done with Trevor Lawrence.
Understood.
That guy.
All right, folks. We will see you next week. We will be led off by the great Jose Cruz Jr. Then Mike and I will come on, hopefully 6-0 between us next week, same time, same place, here on Taking It to the Streets.
Goodbye from St. Pete. And remember, folks, you're only as good as your last trade. So never too high, never too low. Till we meet again.